Hello everyone, Throttle-On John here. We're going to put new spark plugs in this 2002 Toyota. It has a 2.0 liter inline 4, which inline 4 various liter capacities is a common engine size or common configuration for these. So really the first step is to just get access to our coils, and the spark plugs are beneath those. So we'll just remove the front part of this air cleaner. Which is just a matter of literally unlatching that and then kind of pulling this back and off. We'll put our air cleaner aside, and there they are. Here's a little tip. The air cleaner, I put the mileage on there. I also made note in my phone, but that way I can keep track. And there are the spark plugs. It looks like everyone's easily accessible. Maybe this last one we might need to remove this bracket to get at it. So here we have access to the top of the motor. Now we just need to remove each one of these coil plugs or bolts. I guess looks like they're 10 millimeters to me. Just regular ratchet or hand tools. These are on really nice and loose, so it's just a matter of breaking each one loose. Okay, and I will need to remove this bracket. It looks like just a couple 10 millimeter bolts there, and that'll displace off the top of that coil. Let's go ahead and just back these out the rest of the way, pull out the coil, and then we'll be able to access the spark plug. So we just back this out, and then this, you just give it a little wiggle. Actually want to unplug these first. Looks like you can just displace these. Looks like it's just a little bit of a squeeze here. Let's see. So it looks like you just give these a squeeze, and I pushed it in, and it'll back off that rear lip, and you give them a wiggle, and it should unplug. You can see how you push this up, and it displaces that connector off that friction point, that nubbin. So I gave that a squeeze, and off it comes. And we'll just do the same for each one of the other coils too. Give this a squeeze, and it comes off too. You can take a little screwdriver in here as you're squeezing and just very lightly pop that up and over, but be careful, you don't want to break those clips. If you happen to break them, you can put a little bit of silicone on the outside, Toyota silicone, and then push that back on, it'll hold, but let's not break the clips to begin with. So we're going to take off these other two electrical connections to the coils. Okay, we have all these disconnected. I've labeled them, but you don't need to do that. These coils aren't specific to any cylinder. And then you just wiggle these a little bit, and they'll come out. When they pull out, should come out with this seal that keeps debris from falling in there, and this looks pretty good overall. A little bit of oil there, so I think I'm going to do a valve cover gasket on this, but you could do that when you're doing the valve cover gasket, but I'm going to go ahead and put the plugs in now and then do the valve cover gasket another day. So let's go ahead and see what we have. This is a used car to me, it has 111,000 miles on it. Toyota recommends you do this around 120 or so. Do it around 100 isn't a wrong idea, but you could wait till 120. This car has 112,000 miles, so I'm kind of curious what they look like. So it's a used car. Most things on this car I'm finding haven't been, it had oil changes, but beyond that it didn't really get a lot of TLC, so we'll see if it's had new plugs. Alright, so now I'm just going to remove the plugs. I've taken a rag and kind of went in and out of each one of those holes, and I didn't find anything, no copious amounts of oil or blow-by or anything. So appears everything's okay. And you can use a couple different spark plugs. Some are 14 millimeters, some are 5/8. I believe the ones that are in there are 5/8. I have this special spark plug, a long one here that you can fit in there. That's the first time I've ever used that. I've always just had a short one with an extension, worked fine. So if you don't have a long one, don't panic. I'm just using a regular ratchet. So I don't know which one I'm going to use. I guess I'll just use this one. And you just put it in there and turn it around till it seats on top of the spark plug. You'll feel it kind of drop down on top of it. And then of course just get your ratchet on here. And I'm going to turn it to the left. And those are tight. Let's see what we got there. Okay, so just a word on this. This was tight enough to where I put one hand here and one hand here so I wouldn't turn the spark plug to the side and break it. But break it loose. And then I have a feeling this could be the OEM spark plugs, but we'll see. So we'll just turn this out now that's broken loose. Turn it out by hand. Kind of curious what we got here. Here it is. Huh, that looks quite good. Huh. I wonder if those are new. And this is the way a spark plug should look. I don't see anything wrong with it here. Huh, no, it looks quite good. So just a footnote, always use Toyota spark plugs. So you can see I went to the Toyota dealer, I picked up the spark plugs this is supposed to have. These are Denzos that I'm putting in. It's what the Toyota dealer said this car takes. It looks like what I'm pulling out are NKGs, iridium tip. So if they were the factory ones, original from the factory, I think they will have yellow 3 dots on the end, and this doesn't. So I think this has gotten a new set of plugs, and these look reasonably good. But I'm going to put the Denzos in, since this is what the dealer recommended. And you don't need to put never seize or anti-seize on these, because they come with a with the metals coat treated that they're not going to seize in there. Sometimes never seize can bake if it gets hot. So there are certain applications where I think that is a good idea, but on the Toyotas, if you use Toyota plugs, you don't need to do that. So now we're just going to go ahead and thread those in now. When you're doing spark plugs, it's kind of interesting. It gives you an idea of how the engine's doing. You know, if you pull a plug out and it looks like this, you know that cylinder is really in overall good condition. If you pull it out and it's coated with oil down here and carbon, maybe you got a little blow by, your rings are maybe the motor's getting tired, but at least this first piston is looking great. So I snapped this spark plug into my rubber holder here, okay? And don't want it to fall on the way in. As far as gapping, the spec is around 40 thousandths for this motor. And these came pre-gapped, so I'm not gapping these. I did check one, but it was in spec, so I'm just leaving them. And that's been my experience with the Toyota plugs I've bought, as they've been in spec. So now we're just going to go ahead and just lightly kind of go in, always by hand. You don't want to strip anything in here. And you start it by finger. You just kind of wobble it around and you'll feel the threads bite. And see how it's threaded in so nice there? Okay, I'm going to thread that all the way in just by hand. And then we'll put a ratchet on there and we'll snug it down. And then I am going to use a torque wrench on here. I don't always do that, but it's not a wrong idea. I'm just going to torque this down. You'll feel those washers compressing, and they'll compress quite a bit. And there's going to be a point where they kind of stop. And we're going to get a torque wrench on here, though, just to be sure. You don't want to strip these out when those washers are. If you don't have a torque wrench, when those washers are done compressing and it stops, you stop. If you have a torque wrench, you can use that as your gauge, but just something to remember. You don't want to take a very simple project and have a bad day because you stripped your plugs out in the head. Now we're just removing this next plug, and then we'll put another plug in. And this plug looks very good as well. No issues. How long ago did it have new plugs? I'm not sure. You can see some, carbon on the end, but not on the electrode tip. But we'll just go ahead and put the new ones in anyway. We're here. Okay, number 4 spark plug. We have tons of oil, so we definitely need a new valve cover. It's letting lots of oil come in on that spark plug. So we'll wipe that out. And yeah, no, that's the spark plug. It's not in the engine. The spark plug itself looks good. But man, there's lots of oil on top of that spark plug. Valve cover gasket definitely needs to be done. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this on video or not. Probably not, but I'm going to try my best. There we go. You kind of see there's just oil dripping down from the valve cover where it seals on that tube. And then it's dripping down on top of the spark plug. So valve cover gasket is like $23 in a little time. So we definitely need to, we'll do that. But I'll put that spark plug in. I wipe that hole out with a rag by just stuffing it down and pulling it out a few times. And then I won't drive this car until I put a new valve cover gasket on. So I'm just taking a shop towel and putting this in here. And just a footnote, this is why doing a little maintenance on your car is good, because 3 of these cylinders were good seals on the valve cover gasket, but the 4th one was filling the spark plug up with oil. My guess is that this car was starting to misfire when it was used on the previous owner, perhaps, and they just put some new plugs in it. Of course, it runs great for a while with new plugs, but eventually, at the rate that was taken on oil, that plug hole was going to fill full of oil, and the coil was going to have issues. You know, electrical components aren't supposed to be bathing in oil. So anyway, I'm going to tuck this rag in here and let it just soak up some of that oil. And you know, we don't want to jam that into where the piston is, but it's okay to jam that down and let that soak up some of that oil. And then we can pull that out, and we'll put a new one in and pull it out until we get that oil soaked up. And then we'll put that 4th spark plug in. And then, like I said, you could drive this car with it like that, but this is a car I'm getting ready for my kids, so I don't have to drive it right now. So I'm going to put the 4th plug in and actually, you know, just leave it until I can do this valve cover gas. And I'll do a video on that as well. So then, and now what we do is we put the coils back in, tighten these bolts, reconnect our connectors, tighten down our 10mm bolts, replace our air cleaner, and this project would be done. Now we are going to torque these spark plugs as well. So, but this is how you do it. And when you do your maintenance yourself, sometimes you catch little things like this. Like if I hadn't done this, the car was running great. I wouldn't have known that was the issue. All of a sudden, this car's gonna be misfiring. Worse yet, leave somebody out stranded somewhere on an inconvenient time. Cars never break at a good time, it seems. So by just doing something as simple as spark plugs, we've caught something that was, you know, potentially going to be an issue. That was going to fill up with oil. There was a significant amount of oil in that, on top of the spark plug. And that coil connects on top of the spark plug there. It was eventually going to cause issues. So for $20 worth of spark plugs, or whatever they were, maybe $40, and a valve cover gasket, we're going to have this car running good for years to come. Okay, so now we're going to torque the spark plugs. We want to torque the spark plugs. Really, if you tighten it down to where the washers crush and it stops by hand, I've never had one come out, but for the sake of this video, and the proper torque is 20 Newton meters and 15 foot-pounds. So here we go, 15 foot-pounds. There it is. There it is. And this is gonna, there it is. We're gonna stop right there. Okay, we're gonna move the next one. And we're going to go to each one. You can feel those washers crushing. And that one's done there. And we're going to do all 4 that way. If you lose your spark plug socket, click it back in, wiggle it around, and it'll come back off. And we're just going to do all 4 that way. Okay, that one was good. And see, that one I didn't do it with the torque wrench. I just did it by hand. When the washer quit crushing, I stopped. Okay, that one's there. Okay, we're all done with that. Okay, now we'll just put our coils back in. Just wiggle them in and kind of put them in like, put them in the right way so the bolt is the right direction. Wiggle those in like so. And then you'll put your coil bolt in. And that's all there is to it. And the coil bolts don't need to be crazy tight. You don't need to be torqued, just hand snug. So just a little tip is when you plug these electrical connectors in, you should hear a click. If you don't, it's not plugged in. So there, and then this one, wiggle it, there. You should hear that click, and if you don't hear that click, you're not plugged in. Sometimes you can spray a little silicone lubricant in there to make sure it's you know, snapped in, but just wiggle them. And like this connector up here, that clicked when I plug it in. So if you don't hear that click, there's something wrong. And then we did tighten down these 10 millimeter coil plug bolts, just snug, not crazy tight. And you always use just hand tools for this. Don't start things without starting them by hand. We don't want to strip things out. So that's just a tip that you definitely want to make sure you follow. You know, I would never put this in, you know, with a electric tool or a hand electric power tool. You always put those in by hand. You don't want to strip anything out and have a bad day. So here we are. We've got a new valve cover gasket in, new spark plugs. We'll put our our air filter back in, and yeah, it always feels good to have a job well done. Here I am using just hand tools to put this in. I don't want to strip anything or cross thread anything or over tighten it. It doesn't have to be, you know, crazy tight or anything. And there, that should do it. Well, thanks for tuning in. And I hope this just shows you that there's lots of things you can do to your car and just using some basic hand tools. Thanks for watching. I hope it was useful. And you don't have to be scared of working on your cars with these basic tools. Basic procedures. So here I am choking up on the ratchet so that I don't over torque it. I want to grab out here and strip that out. This is just into that valve cover, which is kind of a light aluminum, so it doesn't take a lot of force. So I'm just staying up here on the ratchet using my fingers, just going real easy with that. Doesn't take much. All right, thanks for tuning in.